Ladies and gents, boys and girls, welcome to another episode of OneUp Sessions. This one is a little bit different. We're focusing instead on long-term rather than the short-term that we had earlier on. And for that, of course, we've got two very different guests in the room. We've got Nathan Fuller, MD of Kite Human Capital, I believe it is. I always want to say Kite Resources, but I know that's wrong.
It's Kite Human Capital, but it's just Kite.
Just Kite, much simpler.
Yeah.
And we've also got Donna. Donna, known you for a long time, worked at Vincere, you've jumped around all over the place, and now you're back here with us.
I am. I always come home.
You do, absolutely that. You can't fly the nest for too long. But for those that are listening as well, I think it's good to get more of an idea about you guys. Nathan, you want to go first? Tell us a bit about yourself, about Kite, not Kite Human Capital. Just give the spiel.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, mate. Thank you. Pleased to be here. So I run Kite. We're a talent business. We do a blend of work. We do some embedded work with some of our customers, and then we do more traditional headhunting assignments. We've been around for 20 years, so quite some time, and still really loving it.
So perfect for someone to talk about long term. That's what I want to hear.
That's what we want, right? Yeah,
excellent. And a nice pithy intro as well. Thank you very much. Donna, over to yourself.
Yeah, hi Derry. Thanks for having me again. So you're right. I flew the nest. I went to find out a little bit more about Africa fintech for a while.
Was it PowerPay you were in for a
Yeah.
while?
So there's a reason for everything. I won't go into too many of the whys, but I had a bigger goal, which just is to set up my own business. So I left my home, which was recruitment and recruitment technology. It's all I've ever done, all I ever known, and went to prove to myself and everybody else that actually go to market is go to market, and you can apply it to an African fintech as much as you can apply it to a recruitment CRM. So yeah, I'm back in the UK, and as of next month, I will have been in business for a year. Started the Engine, which is a go-to-market consultancy, and currently amongst other projects, working with the lovely Wendy at Firefish, who we all know and love, as her fractional CRO.
Fantastic. And how are you finding coming back to less ideal weather in the UK, should we say?
Yeah, I mean, it's all right at the moment.
I can imagine it was delightful down in Africa.
And as we've just been talking about, I have also had my garden done. So I'm looking forward to a great summer. Sunny shining in London, and I'm just reminded what a great place it is in the summer.
Excellent. We didn't talk about this when we were talking about gardens a second ago, but we had ours done about 2 months ago. This is definitely a side tangent now. We had it done, and we've got the point where weeds are going through all of our stones, and it's like widespread.
You didn't do it right.
We've got to do
that groundwork again. Yeah, you've got to do it all again.
We've just had it all done for like 2 months. So I'm just
I'm assured by our guys that will not happen. But if it does, I will be savage. I will
100% will. But also get a robot mower. Derry will love this. I can give you the right one. I'm not going to advertise it for two reasons.
I quite like doing a manual mow job though.
No, mate. Honestly, you'll want, because it's fun. You can sit with a cup of tea and go, mine's called Larry the lawnmower, right? You can say, look at Lazar, he's on the move, he's doing it, it's great, right?
You've sold it to me now. I am tech geek, so
honestly,
anything like that.
It's a robot, but he controls it, and that's where the real fun comes in. You've got the joysticks on your down.
It does all of a sudden.
You'll feel so manly right now, yeah. Your little handheld thing.
and I would tell you which one I had, but A, I don't want to advertise, and B, I can't remember what it is. I'll tell you another time, but it's really cool.
Well, the very irony of not being able to remember things is we're talking about long-term stuff now, so I hope you remember a lot about the last 20 years. Today's focus, as I said, is about motivation that lasts. We spoke on our episode earlier on today about over the last couple of years, things have been tough. How do you motivate during that time? This is more focused on long-term, building a culture in a company that lasts as well. And candidly, you and I spoke a few times. I remember asking you a few years ago, what are the kind of big challenges you're going through right now? And one of the things you said was, making sure you can retain top performers for the long term.
Yeah.
And so to open things up, I'd love to hear on your side, what do you feel you've done well over the years that has built a good, strong culture that retains staff, that keeps people motivated through the highs and through the lows?
That's a really good question.
It's a very big question as well.
It is. I'll do my best. So I think with motivation, the most important thing to work out is what it is that you're motivating. So the motivation to quit smoking could be the negative stuff, cancer, smelly fingers, right? Or it could be the positive stuff, save money, long life, health, and everything else. Either motivation could potentially lead to the same result, right? But you need to work out what it is as an outcome that you were driving. And when you're looking at long-term motivation, I think it's really, really important to think about culture, to think about a home for the people, and not to worry too much about the short-term motivators. Short-term motivators will come on to, I'm sure, KPIs and other bits and bobs. What we wanted to do was build a business where there was a shared vision, where everyone believed in what they were doing and was part of something that was building and growing. And I do think we got that bit right. I think if I was to go back sort of 15 years and sit myself down, I think that balancing that with accountability and delivery, certainly in the early years, everyone was super duper happy and quote unquote motivated to be in the room, motivated to spend time together, motivated to love the brand and love the clients and everything else. Were they always motivated to hit the targets in the first few years? Probably not as strongly as they could have been. But one of the things that we did do as a result was we got incredible loyalty from some phenomenally talented people that we're lucky to still call our friends and colleagues today. So we definitely won in that regard. But as with all journeys, you look back at it and, you think, don't you, what could I have done differently? But I think it's that shared vision piece. I think that's what you need.
That's an interesting piece. Like, speak about that vision for me a bit more as well, because one thing I was speaking about, producer Callum over lunch, having a conversation about this. One thing I've seen a lot of agencies really struggle with, and tune in here as well, Donna, if you feel you can. A lot of them struggle to differentiate themselves from the next recruiter down the road. Like, they offer the same solutions. They might spin it up as, we do talent solutions versus recruitment, but it feels like a very, very superficial change. What was the vision that you laid out that you feel was different and kept people around?
We were talking about it a moment ago. Is it okay if I keep going?
Yeah. Keep going.
So when we were setting Kite up, the way that you built a successful talent or recruitment firm, broadly speaking, was you found the best recruiters or talent people. And that might be someone with no experience, where you find a gold candidate and you train them up and get them to be great at what they're doing, or you might take someone who's already proven. But if those people leave, or if those people are not operating in the same moral framework that you want to, then you're building a failing business. And ultimately, what we wanted to do was make the recruitment service into a product. We wanted to make it into, I often talk about Coca-Cola. I don't think we ever got to quite Coca-Cola because we're dealing with people, but you can be in any country in the world, open a can of Coke, you know what you're going to get. And I wanted recruitment to be like that. I wanted to be able to take good, competent people and say, if you follow this product journey, if you make sure you understand these points and execute in this way to this level of standard, then you will get this outcome this many times out of 10. And doing that gave people real solidity in who they were and what they were doing. It wasn't a revenue-chasing blind role, which I sat in my early years, when you'd look at so-and-so in the corner and think, how are they doing it? There was no, and is not, a how are they doing it question in our business. Everyone knows how we're doing it, because we have a very, very clear process for everything that we do. And that provided longevity, because with that, you can provide careers, you can provide growth. When you know exactly what your business does and how it does it, you can scale it. When you're relying on hiring bright individuals to take you from A to B, then you are heavily, heavily at the mercy of those people leaving and your ability to find them. So that was our big focus early on.
And I guess it's kind of translated across into the journey you had with Vincere, right? Because that's not, looking back at those days, like, Vincere was a rocket ship. Like, it grew out of everywhere. Everyone was like, oh my God, they're taking over the world.
Yeah.
You must have had a similar thing around, cool, things are going well, but you still got to have a really good culture in place.
Yeah, it's really interesting, the whole highs and lows piece and how you keep everybody motivated. And I absolutely agree, Nathan. You can totally relate recruitment to product and that environment. And actually, I was always a believer as a sales leader that people are motivated, well, salespeople are motivated in exactly the same way that you just mentioned. So make loads of money or do really well, hit your targets, you're going to make loads of money. You don't, you're out the door. Yeah. So there's that negative and the positive motivators dragging them either way. And when you're in a Vincere situation where you're stumbling across deals all over the place, or we're in a good market in recruitment, actually that does work. You do find that you have quite a motivated team. What's really interesting about motivation is when things aren't so good. So when the market drops a little bit and you actually have the opportunity to take a step back as a leader and think, how the hell am I going to motivate these guys? Because I've gone through my entire career feeling as though I either have to pay them lots of money or wave a P45 at them, and that's what's going to motivate them. And you don't have either of those in your arsenal anymore. So it's like, how am I going to keep these guys? How are you going to keep them motivated? And what's been really interesting for me is almost having that breathing space to teach the team about what we do and why we do it. So now, the Firefish guys, for instance, understand that product probably more with respect than the Vincere sales team ever really understood the whys, the outcomes, why we're building what we're building, who are we building it for, and what the difference is going to make. Because when you don't have the time and you don't have that breathing space, all you can do really is teach them how to demo the thing really, really well and win every deal. That's the best you can do. And we did a lot of that. And I think I do attribute kind of the way that we presented the product to a lot of the success. But actually, I think, and it's exactly the same in recruitment, and that's then for the team to understand what those differentiators are in a market where, to the naked eye, a recruitment CRM is a recruitment CRM. There's very little difference. But if you're really embedding your team into the, things like the product roadmap, getting them involved in decision making around where we go next and who's our real ICP and why we're building this, they feel as though they're different to the next guys. But if they're going into a room feeling as though they're just another CRM, they're just going to go through the motions, and that makes them feel empowered. It makes them feel motivated. It makes them feel like product people as opposed to just salespeople. And actually, I've seen that. I've found that more rewarding as a sales leader than I ever found contributing, millions of pounds to the P&L.
I think you hit the nail on the head with Why. Great book, by the way. Start with Why. Awesome book, right? And even you talked about the risk of losing people or losing direction in downturn markets and in quiet times. But actually, in the problematic scenario you described of sort of sales revenue hunting people whose sole goal or primary goal is that, it's also an issue in buoyant markets. And the reason for that is very simple. If someone's primary motivation or if someone's sole motivation that you have given them is money, then only one competitor needs to pay them more and they'll be gone. If you've got the why, if you understand why we're here, do we want to make money and grow as a business? Absolutely, but why?
I referenced this earlier on, actually, on one of our earlier episodes. I forget which client it was, but a couple of years ago, when we brought them on board, they were like, we don't want to call it placements that we're making, we want to call it lives changed. And people, at first I was a bit like, that sounds a bit fluffy, and I was like, well, actually talk to me about it. And they said, well, the whole thing that we drive around purpose here is you're not just making a placement and earning a few grand a commission from it. You are giving someone a new trajectory in their career here. You could potentially be relocating them halfway around the world. You are genuinely changing their life here with a role that could be transformational for them and their family. And you've got to wake up knowing that is the difference you're making, because when people are telling you to F off on the phone, when you're getting last minute rejections and all the crap that comes with being in recruitment builds up, knowing that that's what you're there to do is the purpose, that you can wake up and say, yeah, I'm proud to do that today.
And it will hold you accountable, right?
Yeah.
Because, it does sound a little bit interesting on the ear the first time you say it. But if you've got a room full of people who are driven by the concept of driving positive change in the lives of their candidates, then that will inevitably drive a moral compass around whether or not a candidate should be closed, right? And we always had the concept that when you pay a recruitment fee, when a business pays a recruitment fee, broadly speaking, they pay the same fee. Say it's £15,000, just for the sake of argument. And if they're going to get a candidate from agency A, B, C, D, or E, then on paper, in theory, they get the same service. What we want is the candidate. We got the candidate. We don't really care where the fee goes. And what we wanted to do was change that. We wanted to add as much value as possible for every single pound they spend. So actually, if you spend your money with us, here are the added value points you will get. Yes, of course, you end up with the right candidate. That's super. But here's why the journey will be more enjoyable, more efficient. Here's why you'll trust us with the next one. And that constant drive to make it worthwhile, make it money they were happy they invested. It was always at the heart of what we do. And it's the same kind of thing that you're talking about with this business.
And it's almost like, you can see how it translates here as well. It's like belief in the product as well. It's about getting the team to believe in those value-add things you were doing and why you're so much better than what the recruiter next door is doing. It's the same as you were saying. It's about becoming product experts in a way. So you're like, wow, I can actually see how this is changing the lives of people that use it. I genuinely believe that every recruiter out there should be using it. Otherwise, as you say, you go through the motions of, here's a contact list, here's how you do a search, here's how you get a shortlist together, and it just becomes a repeated motion every single time you speak about it.
I was actually with a OneUp client a few weeks ago.
I hope they said nice things about us.
Well, they did, and I walked in, and they were office based, and I walked in, and the TVs were up all over the place. I was in heaven. It was lovely. But what I noticed was that there was so much more than revenue on the board, and that was really nice to see. There were things that obviously they're things that all drive revenue eventually, so having positive conversations with people, but actually people are good recruitment companies are now using technology to build really great motivated teams, cohesive teams, and not just that person's a hero because they're the top biller, because as you said, what happens if they then leave? Everybody is rewarded. Now how they reward them financially is not part of that this particular question, but ultimately everybody in that room is probably, unless they're really underperforming in some way, probably has a space on that board, even if they're not the top biller. So they don't get to sit at that top thing when everyone, oh God, they're top biller again, oh wonderful. You know, that board was very dynamic, it's moving around, great conversations, they can track that now in their CRM. Good technology will be able to measure more than just how much did you bill this month.
Absolutely.
And then that should be absolutely elevated and projected to the entire team to drive that really good motivational culture of actually, it takes more than somebody who can just close a deal to be somebody who we want to work with. Ultimately, you know, I'm in sales. My guys need to close deals. That's the end of it.
For sure.
But the ones that do, I want them to also feel empowered and that they can put their hand up and have a suggestion around something else outside of sales in the company, and they will be listened to. And I think that's quite a new thing for us, because salespeople used to be in a corner, they're sales, they don't know what they're talking about. I remember once, probably only about 6 years ago, being in an office, and I probably shouldn't say who said it, but somebody said that if only they had £1, or they should have a jar and put £1 in it every time a customer said something stupid. And the other person who they were talking to turned around and went, oh my God, imagine if we did that for sales. And I was like,
which jar's more full?
Excuse me. But that is such a representative. It's not me having a go at that person if they're listening, which they probably are. It was funny, but that was such a representation of, you know, how sales teams were viewed not that long ago. And actually now they're such a driving force in the business, and it's almost like it's taken a bit of a rubbish market for that shift to happen, and we actually go, oh, you have a heartbeat and you have you're an actual person, you're not just a cash cow. Yeah. So actually, you know, every cloud and all that. Yeah. But yeah, the jar would have been absolutely bursting at the seams.
I'm sure if you ask some things in our business, they'd be saying, yeah, it'd be full.
Yeah, totally.
It's documented. Go and read it somewhere.
Yeah.
To expand on this as well, because a lot of it comes back to, I think, you're saying revenue obviously is the one thing that we ultimately is like 1 or 0. It's got to be a number that we're seeing go up and do well and hit targets and so on. Otherwise, the business is going to struggle. But beyond that, there's a lot more that goes into it. And what you were saying about these different metrics that are being tracked is, it's almost recognition for the other things that they're doing as part of that process as well. So to come to you on this one, recognition, how good do you think you are at on a scale of 1 to 10?
I think we are probably about a square 7.
Okay.
We spend a lot of time thinking about it, and the kind of stuff that you're talking about there resonates very well with me because, for example, in our business, we have some people who are client-facing, we have some people who aren't, we have some people who are new business-facing, and some people who aren't. And it's very easy to celebrate the win of the new business when it comes in because that's awesome. It's also very easy to celebrate the first job. Probably don't celebrate the first CV, but you might celebrate the first deal and maybe not the third one. And actually, every single part of that process is incredibly important in what we do. You know, approaching the right customers, knowing who we are, and building relationships with them, and then going to market and making sure they only hire great people, and then taking care of those candidates through the journey. And this is really important to us. So to go back to revenue for a moment, we talked a lot about the need for salespeople or revenue-generating people to generate revenue. One of the big indicators of the kind of person that I want to work with is when they are willing to walk away from a deal because it is ethically or morally incorrect to do it. So headhunting someone out of a client would be a good example in our market, or closing a candidate because it is possible to convince someone to do something that they may later regret, and closing a candidate down into a role that you do not believe is the correct move for them. It's pretty easy to find people who can do those things. It's really quite difficult to find someone who has the capability to be commercial and also has the moral fiber to do it in the right way. You know, so I think we're okay at recognizing people. We do our very hardest to recognize all of the parts of the machine. And actually, we were having a conversation last fortnight about our back office and our phenomenal finance team. and the great things they do, the invoices they process every month, the contractors and consultants that they pay, the internal payroll that they pay, right? The incredible ways that they contribute to the beating heart of the company. But they don't get the same kind of recognition. Now, back office and front office are different human beings. They probably don't want someone giving them a round of applause every time they've sent an invoice
I
out.
can imagine a few finance people in our team that would die at the thought of that. They'd just be like, no, please
Like
stop,
ringing the
please.
bell, have to ring the bell.
Oh, I imagine. I've just sent an invoice. Oh.
And I think you'd get a day's solid banter out of that, but ultimately you'd need a new finance team. Right? But what we were thinking about is actually how do we recognize and measure their success, because in a back office environment, really you only the spotlight only goes on you when something's wrong, right? And when everything's running as it should be, it's like the engine in a ship. No one looks at it.
It's like the IT team in a way. No one knows it
Yeah.
exists until something goes wrong.
Precisely.
And they're the worst people in the world for not fixing it faster.
Yeah. So we spend a lot of time thinking about this stuff. We definitely don't always get it right. But we do care enough to try and get it right. And I think and hope that resonates with the team.
And what about the Vincere culture when you were building that bit? I'm sort of keep going back to the history here as well. You could very well be doing a similar thing at Firefish too. But across those two companies, recognition, I think most sales leaders I speak to say it's a very important part to make sure the team is well motivated.
Yeah.
How have you used it?
Yeah, I used to be very much kind of, if you want the recognition, come and work in new business. Now this is the old world.
This is old Donna.
That's when I was an AE. Things have changed.
The claws were out.
Yeah. But actually, over time, one thing I will say is that I'm very open to being wrong, and I'm very open to change my ways. And actually, when you take a step back and you're out of the weeds and you actually look at what goes into these things and actually the amount of people that it actually takes, it literally takes a village. Yeah. Particularly when you start, looking at the likes of per temps and enterprise deals like that, no one's getting that bad boy over the line by themselves. And so as a business, you have to, and with the CRO hat on, you have to think about, okay, what is the budget for recognition? Because you can't, you need to still make a profit. And it can escalate if you're like, right, okay, well, we'll keep the sales team as they were, but we'll give them a little bit over there and we'll give them a little bit there. And then you're left with like, there's nothing left of this fee. And what are we going to use for R&D and all of the other things that actually people like in sales don't realise you need to spend. Yourself, you're building product. It's not cheap at the moment to build product, so you do need to invest back into it. Yeah. Same with the recruitment as well. You need to be investing back into the business. So there's only so much to go around. Yeah. With that being said, from a budgetary perspective, I would have a budget which is bigger than my sales team commission budget. I wouldn't take from the sales team. I've tried it, so that's why I say I've tried it, and it backfired on me massively. And I tried to do a nice thing, and lo and behold, I pissed everybody off. So no one's happy now. So it's like, right, abort, let's try something different. So instead of then going, okay, well, this year what we're going to do is we're going to increase the sales team commission, I kept it as the same. And it's pretty standard, 10, 12, 14. We all do it in SaaS, right? It's the same thing. So they're not going to go somewhere else and get more money. I am an absolute infamous overpayer anyway, because I like to get the best people. So so you keep that the same, but add in all of the other motivators that we've just been speaking about. So get them to feel part of the business, teach them about product, get them involved in projects that are going outside of sales. And then you've got that little bit of a pot then to say, okay, with this particular deal, we had 2 people from CS, maybe they've had a terrible time at Bullhorn or whatever, and customer success is super important to them. Okay, let's get CS in on this deal. From the second demo, let's have a CS manager there now. Why should they spend their time on the new business
helping
demos?
Out,
Right, okay, we've got a bit of a pot left over. Let's allocate that to them. So I think I'd put that in every quarter into the budget anyway. And if you don't use it, then have a big team party. But if you do, then everyone gets rewarded financially as well. Because whilst the things that we're talking about today around the why and feeling motivated and feel like you're part of something else are incredibly important, and they're very important to me, by the way, as well. I wouldn't work for a company where I didn't feel motivated by the culture or what they 100%. Do. But at the same time, as you pointed out, you can work really hard on that. But if you take your eye off the prize from a money perspective, someone will swoop in. The cost of living is huge. And if someone comes in and your guys or your girls are going to get, 20, 30 grand a year more, then you can create the most wonderful culture ever, and they are going to leave. So you still need to have your eye on how much you're actually paying them and make sure that it's comparable at least with the market.
Yeah. There's another risk in KPIs, which or in motivating for any part of your process, which is the inner desire to highly motivate, inner desire to celebrate and to reward. You may end up driving the wrong activity.
Yeah.
So if you're driving activity which happens but doesn't result in revenue or success for the business, then you may accidentally create a room or team full of people who are utterly focused on doing something that doesn't make you money.
100%. And that's the risk with what we were saying before we started talking about money,
Yeah.
was that we can work really hard as leaders trying to lock down this amazing team, and all we've done is absolutely annihilate our bottom line and not created, doesn't need to be revenue today, not even tomorrow, but there needs to be a pipeline there. We need to see some sort of impact along the revenue chain, whether it be, in MQLs, whether it be in pipeline, whether it be in revenue. You need to see a positive impact on that, which actually a good, motivated, happy, well-rewarded team should always equal business growth anyway. So if you're not seeing the business growth, then the chances are that you're getting the other stuff wrong anyway, or you've got the wrong people in the business.
It's also unfair on the individual, right?
Yeah.
So if you take some really, really basic example of a person making sales calls, right? You could technically, well, not technically, I've watched people do it. You could make sales calls all day and never
Busy
succeed.
calls.
Right? Yeah. Just going at the
Hi,
effort.
Nan, how's it going?
Well, no, better than that. Genuinely trying, but understanding that they are targeted on calls and so making the calls. Yeah, of course. I remember used to sit next to a guy at the beginning of my career who would just leave the Australian talking clock on his phone to hit the amount of time that he had to do. So it would cost the business a fortune to give him that target, right? But even outside of examples like that, if someone believes that they're successful when they've made X hundred calls, and they drive their psyche and their focus into making X hundred calls, but don't drive any leads, book any meetings, or open up any opportunities, and you've told them that the calls matter. Okay, it's very easy to see how the business owner or the director loses out there. The revenue's not coming. But you've also unintentionally misled the individual. You've told them success looks like this, and it doesn't. So then they think they're doing incredibly well, and they can't work out what's wrong. And if you have to sit them down and have a difficult conversation with them, it simply doesn't make sense. You told me to make 100 calls, I made 100 calls. We need to be super clear on where in the value chain you sit. And there's activity that drives results, but these are the results you're responsible for. And if you get these, hallelujah. And quite frankly, if you can get there with 3 calls and a tuna sandwich, that's great. I really don't mind. And so this desire... There is in good leaders, I think, a desire to recognise as many people in as many ways as possible, but we have to be super careful that everyone always knows what good looks like on their desk, all right, in their seat. What am I here for? What's my purpose, right? Otherwise, we may end up with misled people all over the place.
Totally. It's like you can appreciate the effort someone puts in, but it's ultimately still got to lead to the right outcomes at the end of the day.
Totally. It's like the MQL thing, another manager. It's the marketing version of loads of sales calls, but on the inbound, it's very easy to kind of parade those and say,
the download an ebook, it's an MQL, and it's like, MQL, but that doesn't go to revenue.
And it's only recently that people have been really honing down, and it's because of the use of technology and AI, and that we're able to do it much quicker now, so it doesn't take forever and a day to actually get some good ratios down. But your MQL to SQL conversion rate should be the first thing that you're tracking, and then you obviously go into how many of those SQLs are potentially closing, and by doing that as well, and by looking at the different stages of the sales process, you'll be able to identify where it's broken as well. But I think for me, I agree with you. Whilst you want everybody to be doing the activities, and it's easy to go, right, okay, if they're on the phone, I know they're doing something, but actually they're probably not. They're probably just wasting their time and getting really demotivated. Just go back to the motive. No one likes it, just constant dial anyway. What I would say to those guys is, why don't you actually put some time in your diary for research? I'd rather someone do 10 calls a week and have something to talk to that person about because they've done an hour and a half worth of research on a Friday afternoon. And you'll tend to find that good salespeople actually, whilst you wouldn't think it, interestingly, I've found they love that stuff. They love getting their head into it, like a dog with a bone, and they'll find out so much about somebody, and then they'll go and make contact with them, and they have such a higher success rate in that respect. So yeah, I tend to stay away from just cold calls and MQLs as a success metric.
It's very siloed metrics, yeah.
They're very siloed metrics, and they're incomplete because there's no to what.
I've had some conversations about this recently, and a good one that came up was like a new starter joins the business and you say, okay, your target is to make 60 calls a day, and they're like, yeah, but the top performer's doing 15. Like, so why is that expectation of me?
Yeah.
And what I think often is a disconnect is between a leader and sometimes a manager in this case, but normally it's like leaders that are ones mandating this has got to be a thing, is they don't always explain like the why or the lead on from those numbers. It's like, okay, well, the reason why this person makes less calls is because they've got good enough at finding the right CVs and turning it into interview with their clients that they haven't got to make as many calls in that case. Or they do a lot of research, as you were saying, and we know because they do research, they do these soft contact points, maybe they're really good on socials. When they make a phone call, they're more likely to already be known to the person. They haven't got to slam it. And you will get to that point. But right now, you've got to get the reps in. You've got to practice your cold call skill. So when it does come around to you having to make less of them or being able to make less, you've at least got the skill to be able to do it. But that context is what's missing. And they just see, I've got to do 16, he's got to do 15. Well, that's not fair.
And it becomes the job.
But
it's like your job is to make 60 calls a day. It's like, again, going back to the why. Why? What's that going to bring in?
But there is another aspect to this, right? Because the person making 15 calls a day may well be one of the top performers. And here's one of the reasons it matters. I've set KPIs. We have KPIs. I genuinely think that managed correctly, they give people a security blanket and understanding. This is my job. This is what good looks like. I can go home knowing I did well. If you only go home in recruitment, having done well on the days you did a deal, then you're going home empty-handed far more often than you're going home successful. So you need to know, and KPIs give you that blanket. But here's the thing, and I've said this to quite literally hundreds of recruiters over the years. I think, have defined and written down that these are the activities that we know 80% of the time will lead to success. Now, if you choose not to do them and you hit your target or overachieve, that's great.
Who cares?
If you can find a way to get to what good looks like in your way, to be honest with you, within reason, I'm pretty comfortable. Because if the client gets great service and if the business gets the value it needs, I'm happy. If you choose to ignore all the guidance and all the training and all the targets and then fail, that's a really difficult conversation.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's so important to have those kind of metrics there. And you may well say, Sophie on the other side of the room, she is only doing 15 calls a day, but she's consistently on target. And by the way, listen to her. What's she doing?
If that happened, I think now as well, particularly with all of the AI that we have, that we can kind of layer over all of our sales tooling, it's time for a rejig at that point to say, we got the playbook wrong. The playbook's changed. We know that our top performers are making 15 calls a day. So let's do it all again. Let's work backwards from the target or from the best performer and actually work out what the milestones are and the breadcrumbs are to get into that. Because you probably find that actually you don't arrive at 60 again. You'll arrive at 15 because the world has changed and they've got so many more tools and information
available. And there's the qualitative trade-off, right?
Yeah.
15 amazing calls is better than 60 average calls, right? And look, we're all different, right? Some people are better at the qualitative aspect of their role and can select and carefully make fewer calls or do fewer activities, send fewer CVs, book fewer interviews, go on fewer sales meetings, whatever it may be, and succeed. And other people revel in the numbers and enjoy the ratios.
Getting their head down, just smashing it out, make sure that
and that's okay, right? I actually, in the imaginary Sophie that I just made up, maybe she used to make 60 calls a day and she's now got 9 clients and actually she services them, looks after them and is one of the top performers in the business. And maybe what the new person isn't seeing is the 2 years before they arrived, when Sophie wasn't doing 60 calls a day, she was doing 160, right? And to complain that I don't have to do that is to completely lose sight of the journey that some of these people have been on. Now, I invented that scenario. There's like thousands of others, right? It's not necessarily correct.
But this is where it comes back to like the recognition for the activity that goes in for those that are putting in the graft and are willing to work hard. And it's finding that delicate balance that is never an easy thing to find.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I think the account management thing is really interesting as well, and something that can going all the way back to the conversation, can create that very kind of that culture of reward and belonging. Because if you're working with, maybe you have a little bit of a new business angle, but if a lot of your revenue comes from existing accounts, you almost find yourself being kind of joined up with those accounts, and that in itself will make you feel more part of your, or less likely to want to leave, rather than I'm done this deal, back onto the next one, it's a new logo every single time. It's like, I actually want to stay with this company because I love these clients so much. I work with them all the time. They make me a fortune. You know, any new business that I bring in is just like a cherry on top of the cake. I can actually pay my mortgage and have some left over with the clients that I've got. So, and I actually think, I mean, it's a long time since I was in recruitment, but that account management piece just wasn't a thing. It's like, right, deal, on to the next one, ding, ding, gone. And
shiny toy syndrome, that
totally. It's like, right, back on the phones, guys. You've gone out, you've had your champagne, back on it. And yeah, I was talking to Lauren Longstaff-Roberts from Wiser Elite at the Rec Expo on the panel, and she was talking about how they've built this kind of account-led culture, which I just think is an amazing transformation for recruitment, and kind of makes me want to go back in for a little while and see what it's all about, because it must be a really interesting dynamic and has made it such a kind of nicer place to be.
It was how we were, and in some respects still are for many years. And you know, one of the things that the talent market is doing at the moment is I think we're in the middle of some sort of evolution, right? So what's your surname, Donna?
Owen, O-W-E-N.
What's the etymology of that? Do you know? I don't know. What's Holt?
If you want what it actually means, my full name. The Holt means of the woods.
Of the woods.
Does it?
Yeah, right. Derry means special red one. So special red one of the woods.
So Derry's
that
ancestors...
wasn't why my parents chose the name, I will stress. It just happens to be what it means.
I sound like you might have some Native American in there.
I doubt it. I mean, normally I'd be wearing an Irish claddering, and I'm wearing like an 8th Irish or something. But I don't know where it goes back to.
Well, it's very Welsh, my name, so it's something to do with Wales.
It is very Welsh, isn't it? So if you go back, I'm Fuller. The Fullers were people they were launders. They made as white as a fuller's sheet and all that stuff. And then we got Smiths and Bakers and all the other names. Sometimes it's where you're from, sometimes it's what you did. And if you go back not that many hundreds of years, what do I do for a job? Well, I do what Dad does, right? If I'm a guy.
Yeah.
Right? Going hundreds of years back. If you go forward to the Industrial Revolution, then outside of a very select few white-collar professions, what do I do for a job? Well, I go and queue up outside the factory in the morning and I try and get in. And I'd try and do a shift, right? And then you get all the way through to really the sort of post-World War II, 50s, 60s booming times when technology creates so many different roles and radicalizes industry and then creates ultimately the recruitment industry. Then you've got this period of time pre-agency when how do you fill a role? You put an advert in the paper and a poster in the window, right? And then you've got how do you fill a role? You use an agency. What, any role? Absolutely. Anything.
And they're all in the window as well.
Yeah, we'll put them in the window, but we know we're not even going to
look. No, but of the agency.
Yeah, they're in the window. And the CVs are hanging down, right? And all that's happening. And then you move forward to sort of 6-7 years ago when you've got the split between direct sourcing, but we recognise the need to use agencies. Now we're in a quiet spell, so direct sourcing feels as though they don't need agencies. I really, really, really hope that they do again, because if and when they do, it's because our economy is going in the right direction. So I look forward to that moment, but I still feel that we are staring into the next chapter of what talent looks like. And it really, really excites me. And we've just done 500 years in 2 minutes. Right, the way that people identify with their career, the way that people found their job, the way that people got promoted is changing constantly. And I think anyone who sits comfortably in this is what I do in talent is making a huge mistake. You need to work out how to add value in the chapter we are moving into. And that's been my absolute obsession for the last 2 years, is what is the future of the talent market? Where is it going? And then that, if I'm honest, that's my motivator. I love the journey that this industry's been on, and I can't wait for whatever comes next.
Out of curiosity, do you say that sort of stuff to your team?
Yeah, we did a session on it yesterday morning.
Okay. I was going to be really interested. You said, like, I'm really big on this, but I don't talk to the team about it. I'd be like, why not?
No, it's my secret. No, I totally do. Yeah.
And what's their view, their perspective?
Yeah, they agree. I mean, I think, look, with this whole story, that there's a fear factor as well, right? I mean, we were saying before we clicked record, how are things, right? Now, if it was 2006, we wouldn't have had that look of caution in our eyes about how are things,
Wouldn't be here, we'd be billing.
We'd be billing, it would be great, right? And, there's no hiding from the fact that the economy has been, let's just say, pretty wonky for some time, right? And so some people revel and get excited by change. I do. Some people are really, really, really find it difficult and scary. And I'm an optimist. And I love change. So for me, staring out over the precipice and going, what's next, is like, oh, this is great. There's going to be something shiny down there.
It's like if change is inevitable, you may as well feel excited about it.
Exactly.
Rather than live in fear for your whole life about what comes next.
Yeah, but not everyone's like that.
I adore change.
I do too.
I seek it out all of the time. I'm like, what's next? What's next?
How did the team react? Some of them super pumped. Some of them can't wait. Some of them terrified. Some of them hiding it better than others. Right, because change is difficult. Now, I love our company. I love our industry. I'm so excited about what comes next. But one of the things you have to be aware of as a leader is not everyone thinks like you.
Yeah, totally.
And you do need to lean in to another book. Actually, Before and Laughter, Jimmy Carr. Who would have thought that guy could write a self-help book? It's actually funny and incredibly incorrect on many, many levels, but it's also useful and incredible. Before and Laughter, an amazing career guide. It's basically his career story, right? And one of his points is find what you're good at and lean in, right? And if you're a leader and your skill is operational management, being organized, processes, lean into it. If it's being extrovert and getting people to believe, lean into it. Whatever you do, find your good bit and push in. I love change. I love shiny things. So I lean into that. But I'm also very aware that that's not everyone's world, right? So you have to be aware that, and this is the other thing, right? You're never ever going to be able to motivate everyone. You can't.
Can't please all the people all the time.
It's not possible. It doesn't mean that not everyone will be motivated, but when you do a competition, it will land with some people, it won't land with others. When you set out the vision for the next business, you want to get it more right than wrong, but you can tie yourself in a knot trying to get it right for everyone, and I've seen it happen, and you just need to be patient with it.
I don't think it's our job to motivate anybody. I feel as though we provide a good place to be motivated and a good environment, a motivational environment. But ultimately, it's your name above the door, so you decide what that looks like. And if that doesn't motivate them, it's not your job to kind of, grab them by the throat and bring them on the journey, because what you'll end up with is a team that actually what they needed was that environment, and they've slotted into that really, really well.
Yeah.
And they'll just join you on the journey. I'm going to do a Derry now and go back to Vincere days, which I don't do that much. But the reason why that went so well for me is because I was going through a horrendous time when I found that role and just felt like I'd come home. And the fact then I was
You're
working...
amongst your people who are motivated by the same things, thought the same way.
But at no point did I go, I'm really motivated. I feel so motivated to do this. But now I look back at it, I'm like, how the hell did I make my body work that hard? Like, I've never worked so hard in my life, but didn't feel like it at the time. I was loving life. I couldn't wait to get up. And, the head office was in Vietnam, which is 7 hours ahead. So they'd already been working 7 hours by the time I get up. So I get up 2 hours before. I start setting my alarm for 4 so that I've not missed anything. Yeah. And loved every single second of it. No one will ever hear me moan about any of my time there, because whilst it was hard work, that really, I feel like it could have saved my life. And it was because I fitted so well, and it was the place for me.
But that's drive, right?
So that's the environment that but no one actually said, we'll motivate you to come across.
But I don't think it was just the environment. I think there are loads of people out there who you can give them the best environment, the best vision, the best journey, and they'll be anywhere between not good enough and mediocre.
But that's not the right place for them then, is it?
It's not the right place for them, but also I think, coming back to what you were saying, there's a responsibility that splits between the employer and the employee, right? And one of the things the employee needs to bring is the drive. They have to bring that. You've got to bring
the willingness,
the willingness, the desire, and you've then got a huge responsibility to train them, guide them, give them the right vision, the right environment, treat them the right way. And if you're lucky enough to bring someone into your business who is awesome, who is fantastic, you've really got to nurture that and take care of them. But there are loads of people out there who just don't work hard enough.
That's true.
Right? They're just not good enough. That's why recruitment exists. If everyone was good at what they did, all you'd need to fill a job was a sandwich board. You just write solutions architect on the front, stand outside the bank, queue forms, you're all mega, in you come, line up, right? Yeah. The reason that recruitment exists is fundamentally because most people are just not good enough. And that is the same when we're hiring. Yeah. And we have to be aware of it. And when you're talking about that drive, getting up early in the morning, working really hard, I'm sure that was a lovely place to work, but that wasn't them, that was you. I've seen loads of people in great environments not bring that. That came from inside you, right? Which is what people want to hire.
Because you need the right environment to facilitate that nature in someone.
There needs to be, and again, this is why recruitment exists and good recruiters exist, because it's human capital, right? There's got to be a connection there. And just like with any relationship, you know, you can walk into you can go on Tinder or whatever, walk into a bar, be absolutely physically attracted to somebody, but have the worst night of your life because there's just not that physical connection there. So I think there is something in that as well around, you know, that connection and the chemistry working as well. So you need to have...
You were a hard worker and you found somewhere that gave you something to drive at, but they didn't make you a hard worker.
No.
Do you see what I mean?
I get where you're coming from.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think we can make anyone. I actually,
no, you don't.
And this always splits me, but I actually think it's something that you brought, that kind of work ethic, that deep work ethic. Because I've tried so hard to motivate people and inject that in them, and even that kind of follow me type of leadership. Come on, have you seen that? There's a drawing where it talks about leaders versus managers, and the leader is kind of at the front going, follow
come with me, and the manager at the back saying, go that way.
Exactly. I'm definitely the former, not the latter. And you can really try all those things, but ultimately hard work is something that I think, you know, we're either blessed with or we're not. My daughter, actually, I'm really worried about. She's 15 and she's the laziest person I've ever met. And I'm like, how did this happen? And I'm really worried that she's going to be one of those people in the workplace that they can't seem to get the right amount. Now, I'm sure something will click somewhere along the lines when she finds the right environment, the right job, the right motivations, etc. But it is a real concern now that she's kind of coming to school leaving age, that I'm like, I hope you're not one of the lazy people.
Also, I get the pretty firm impression from spending.
You can't go in recruitment.
I get the pretty firm impression from spending time with you that your version of lazy, your bar is pretty high.
Well, right? I mean, it's a household of people that move around a lot.
Yes.
So when someone
don't stand still for long.
No. So when someone's very stationary, they stand out. But again, you know, same as in a recruitment firm. You know, if somebody's just not got that level of drive and motivation, they'll stick out like a sore thumb in a good recruitment
What makes it
firm.
harder thing in recruitment, especially, is because for so many, like, I don't think I've yet met a person I've spoken to who has said, from a young age wanted to go into recruitment. Like, nearly every person says, I fell into it.
Yeah.
It happened more by chance, right?
What is that?
And I think the problem is, for many, like, they fall into it and they don't have that, there's no fire behind their eyes for it. It's a job, it's there, it does enough for them. And you can be the best leader in the world that maybe gets an extra 20-25% out of that person versus maybe their resting level. But unless they've found their tribe and found their people with a calling that they feel is like, wow, I want to be part of this, you're not going to see that hard worker. Like, for example, let's say you worked in a factory, to go back to some earlier examples, you probably wouldn't work as hard as you do in recruitment because you found your calling. You found your tribe, the people that drive and inspire you, the work that you do, you feel like you're transforming lives. It's far more motivational than, I don't know, assembling car parts on a factory line. That would probably take it out of most people.
Well, it wouldn't challenge you. Right?
But you'd still be the hardest working person at the factory.
That's natural competition built, isn't it?
Absolutely, You still got to beat them at everything, always.
This is it. She's entirely correct.
I think that's I love the term tribe as well. That whole tribal thing. Like Firefish have got that. You know, Firefish, they've got that down to a T. So they're celebrating like 15-year anniversaries with some of their team right now. Like with most of the Firefish team, you would not be able to drag them out of there. And I don't know how they've done it. It's not just time served or longevity or the fact they're in Scotland. You know, all of those reasons are there, but there is something there and it's magical. Yeah. And it makes me love working with them because I find it from a psychological perspective really interesting that, you know, I get 2 or 3 messages a week from salespeople and others that are looking to move around in the rec tech space. It's very fluid at the moment, as you know. And yet we don't lose people.
You know, I think that comes from the top down. And admittedly, I don't know Wendy anywhere near as well as you will, given you work with her so closely. But like, she is quite infectious to be around. I find she is quite high energy. And this again, I think, comes with finding your tribe. And those that saw Wendy and was like, I want to work with that person because she inspires me, she gives me energy.
So hardworking.
That's where I think it comes from.
So hardworking.
If you align with that, that's your tribe. Then you're going to stay.
She's that leader that we just spoke about. Is at the front saying, "Follow me."
Yeah.
You know, she's on every product call. trying to get away from the sales stuff now and succeeding slowly.
Over there.
So, yeah,
Let me deal with this.
It's all right. We're all right. But yeah, very, very involved in product and everything. So yeah, phenomenal leader. Really, really good. One of the best I've worked with.
I think you raised a really good point, actually, in some of what you're talking about the tribe, because I wasn't entirely convinced when you started talking, but I've been thinking about it, and yeah, 100% there. I mean, I've hired hundreds of people over my career, and some of them I probably shouldn't ever have hired. Some of them I was incredibly lucky to hire, and then there's every single shade of grey in the middle, right? But there are people I hired who are astronomically talented. I went through a phase of hiring professional athletes, so footballers who'd come to the end of their career, which is super young, right, for most of them, or people who had achieved a lot in sports at university or school, because they've got the work ethic, because they know what it's like to fail as well. Right, one of the hardest things to learn in any career, particularly when you're on the front line, is to fail and get up again. And anyone who achieves in sports knows that, right?
And a natural competitive drive, which I think you need to be able to go through those tough times.
They can back themselves, they can back the team, they know what it's like to fall in the mud, get up and then win, right? Which is brilliant. But not a single one of the phenomenally talented, smart, bright, ex-professional sports people is still with us. None of them ever became our top performers. A lot of them are still my friends and like really, really good people. But we weren't their tribe, right?
Yeah.
We were their friends, and they had a great time working with us. But we came to realize really, really quickly that a super motivated, talented person who just doesn't want to do recruitment is in the wrong job. Right?
Yeah, a bit like the Tinder situation. It's just like, it looks attractive on paper, but actually it's not, that connection isn't there. So I think there is definitely something in that creating an environment that is motivational and is inspiring is very, very important, but also understanding that not everybody's going to find it motivational and inspiring. Some people are going to find it too salesy, too cheesy, too cutthroat. Those are all things that I love and thrive in. Like, as the more pressure, the better for me. But I also accept that for others, it's not the right environment. So, we're dealing with people, and the thing is, in recruitment, all you're ever dealing with is people. You've got your own people, you've got candidates, you've got clients, and that's why I find that hiring from recruitment, it's the ultimate sales role. And so I was always very successful hiring recruiters into software sales. With that being said, that didn't come without challenges, and a lot of them went into a revolving door, came in and went straight back out the door again. I was like, what have I done? You need to get back into recruitment. That's your tribe. That's where you need to be. But I think because of that kind of, if you've been a leader in recruitment, you have to be so on it with that. You're constantly dealing with people that usually you'll come into a sales role with such people skills and the ability to kind of be a bit of a chameleon in that respect.
Yeah, and we're also just dealing with, as we have conversations about people who find their tribe, as you put it, and end up doing something they love. I've been in this industry for a long time now. I don't know, what is it, 2 or 3% of people that I meet are both excellent at what they do and love it. If you are lucky enough to find a trade of any kind, of any description, that you absolutely chuffing love and you're really, really good at it, you're top 2-3%. Right? You're so incredibly
They're
lucky.
the A players that we often speak about in businesses, right?
Yeah. And how lucky are you to find that, right? And the fact that we sound as though we all love what we do and we're really good at it. So maybe we are the 3%, right? I don't know.
Right in this room.
And we talk about people that we've worked with who are phenomenally talented. And it sounds as though we have been lucky enough to work with people who are incredibly good at what they do and love what they do. And that in itself is phenomenal, right? Just to be that lucky. And I know, having spent time with people in all sorts of different industries and all sorts of different career paths over the course of my own career, a lot of people go to work and then go home. Right?
Yeah.
And by the way, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but the vast majority of people don't take their soul to work with them. Their heart isn't truly in it. And it's not how I roll. I don't think it's how either of you do either, but I'm not saying that either is right or wrong. But as we talk about motivation and how to build teams that create that special secret sauce, let's not forget how hard it is, how unusual it is to have an environment in a particular industry or task that happens to match that person's goals, needs, skills, and everything else. That's a fantastic moment when that comes together. And that's why I value so highly the people who've worked for me for so many years. Because how lucky was I to find them? How lucky were they to find us? It clicks, it works, and let's make the most of it. And again, that's the essence of what hiring is, right? It's why CRMs exist. Going back to what you're doing at the moment, right? CRMs exist.
AI's coming for it all.
Yeah.
CRMs exist because we need to be able to categorize people into who's good and who's not, and who does X and A, who does A and who does B and who does C, right? Because fundamentally, we know somewhere deep inside of us that most people aren't particularly good at what they do, and most people aren't particularly happy. And to be talking about long-term motivation today, how absolutely phenomenal is it if anyone stays long-term in a business and loves it? It doesn't matter what they're doing, right? Recruitment, not recruitment, it's really not the point. If you love your job and you're making a good living, well done. That's just absolutely astronomical in any industry.
It's funny. It's one thing my dad always said to me when I was younger, is he was just like, as long as you do what you love, I don't care what you do.
Yeah.
Is that just find something you love doing, that you enjoy improving at, growing at? And it's why for me when I was younger, like games programming was what I went into. And when it came around to going to university, I had a choice of that, astrophysics, or joining the RAF. And all three appealed to me for various reasons. But I'm very glad I went down that route of games programming because I love coding things. Like even today, the reason why my business exists is because 10 years ago now or so, James and I sat down and thought, let's go and build something really cool that we're motivated to make. And that's just carried on for that last decade.
He'd have kicked himself if he became a gun runner, though, let's be honest.
Would have been very different about that way, absolutely, yeah. But it's like kind of you were referring to a second ago, like finding that thing that you love doing and wanting to constantly get better at it, to improve at it and to be good at it in the first place. I think it is a very hard combo to find for a lot of people.
It is.
Stressing.
And it is. And, there are people out there doing incredibly valuable vocations, right? We're surrounded by them all the time, but by teachers, by paramedics, by all sorts of people who back up and support the community and the society that we live in, who I assume that a lot of them love what they do. I'm sure that it's difficult and hard work and tiring, but I can't understand why they'd be in it unless they did. And those roles are not rewarded financially in the way that they should be. I think it's absolutely astonishing how little money a fireman makes. It's just the danger they put themselves in and the skills they need to have versus what I do. Like, honestly, let's be serious about this. They don't get paid enough, right? And so there are people out there who seem to follow a vocation. They seem to follow what they believe they should do, and they've got this heart. And there are other people out there who just follow the money. I mean, lawyers. Right, I've met so few happy lawyers in my life. And
I actually wanted to be a lawyer when I was.
No, you're way too
kid.
nice. It would never have worked.
I've got a dark side.
I've met most of the lawyers I've met who may have been truly, truly wonderful people didn't truly love their job.
They were told to go into it because it makes a lot of money.
Yeah. It was a good white collar career. They make a good living. They're working their socks off. They're working till their eyes bleed. But they go home to their partner, their nice house, and everything else. So the fireman, in this example I gave, I feel like I should be saying fireperson. Firefighter. Thank you very much. You rescued me. We'll cut that, right? Yeah, solid.
Way. That's not getting cut.
Exposed.
The firefighter loves what they do, but they're probably not being rewarded enough, right? The lawyer is maybe being rewarded financially phenomenally well, but doesn't truly love what they do. And if you're in a position where you've got both of those ingredients, I mean, hallelujah. Right, it's just absolutely amazing.
I think most recruiters, if we're honest about it, are much more on the lawyer side than they are on the firefighter side. I don't think many recruiters just do it for the laws.
Because they fall into it, as we said earlier on, right? They're not going into it to be motivated by it.
They hear that. If they get into it young, it's because someone's told them, hey, why are you working in a bar? Why don't you just go and be a recruiter? And you're like, I made 60 grand last year. And they go, 60 grand? I made 6. Off I go to recruitment. I remember I've got an older brother, and when I went into recruitment, and he found how much money he made. He was in a call centre at the time. And he was like, well, I'm just going to do that then. And he came and lasted about 2 months. And they was like, how do you do that?
Yeah.
Like, that's the worst job ever. That's horrendous.
I
How
don't
do you
think
do that?
most people stick.
I really like it. So I think, you're absolutely right. But how do we... And that's a really good analogy, actually. The people that do what they do because they are motivated by the purpose, by the higher purpose... We're never going to make a recruiter as motivated to fill jobs as a firefighter
Absolutely
is to
not.
save lives.
No.
We know that. However, could we take a little bit of that psychology and sprinkle that over to say, actually, yes, there's a big paycheck in this, but what we'd love to have is a team of people who also feel as though they do have some sort of purpose to what they do. And a lot of, recruitment messaging now, recruitment marketing is all about a purpose. You mentioned, what was the metric?
Changing lives.
Changing lives.
Yeah, lives changed, yeah.
Lives changed.
Yeah.
Is it idealistic to feel as though a recruiter would ever think that what they do is really making a difference, and as a byproduct of that, they're also mortgage free at 30? Like that would be ideal.
It doesn't even need to go that high, right? One of the things I used to think early on in my career, first place I worked was pretty aggressive. I learned a lot and made some good friends, but it definitely didn't have the moral environment that I've built and would work in today, right? I definitely learned a lot and it was good, right? But I think trying to think about the future of what you're building and why it is important to you. Maybe it doesn't have to be a full-blown vocation. I used to think, if I can go and see my grandmother this weekend, look her in the eyes and said, every single penny I've earned well and I've done the right thing and I've made a lot of money, that's great. Maybe I haven't changed lives, but every single person who touched my process got value from it and would work with me again. That, for me, that was always enough, right? To do the right thing, to make a good living doing the right thing was fine. I definitely wasn't born for a vocation. There's no way my mind works like that. And I think, frankly, as a society, we're incredibly lucky that so many people do. Incredibly grateful for the teachers and the paramedics and everything that underpins our society. And unfortunately, as I said earlier, they're just not treated the way they should be sometimes, right? And I think that if you can build a recruitment business where people feel like it's a vocation, I mean, goodness me.
Maybe
right?
a teeny bit, a little bit,
and it would be phenomenal.
Yeah,
but I don't think you even need to get that high, right? I think for me, it was about doing the right thing and also being incredibly successful. If you can do both those things, there's loads of examples in history: people who did the wrong thing didn't make any money, and people who did the right thing and died in poverty. Right? If you can make good money doing the right thing.
I want to say it's ikigai, which is a Japanese concept of do something the world needs, do something you love, do something you're good at, and something you can make money from. You combine those four things, and that's like the key to a really happy life. Is like you're doing all these things again. Yeah. You're helping the world. The purpose is there. You love doing it. You're good at doing it. You make good money from it. Yeah. Obviously, some things like mentioning firefighters, for example, it lacks maybe in the money area, but the other three, very fulfilling and very much why people love doing it despite the pay they get.
Yeah, I think you're right. We'll always need to bolt. You're never going to get recruiters who are like, actually, we recruit teachers and therefore you're doing a really good thing and you're going to get paid 15 grand a year, and they're going to go, I don't care how much you pay me because I'm changing the world one teacher at a time. It's just not going to happen. And I wouldn't want that person working for me anyway, because I don't know how to motivate people who aren't motivated by money. That's my skill set. It's like I work well with a team that want to be successful, and I love having a successful team. But yeah, I think, and actually, I don't think it's too idealistic, because it's the messaging from recruitment businesses now, and like listening to you say that about you genuinely wanted to know that you were doing the right thing, and now you've ended up being successful. So you didn't fall off a cliff because you were trying to do the right thing, and actually you should have just shoved a couple of people in that shouldn't have ever had that job and pulled them out of a job that they love to get them into a job to make a fee. You always did the right thing, so you're proof that by doing the right thing, the karma didn't come and get you, and you actually were successful. So actually, I don't think there's anything wrong with, and from a retention, motivation perspective, making, particularly in this generation as well, where there is a much more emphasis on, the environment, doing good,
purpose, impacts, all that,
animals, climate change, all of that stuff is really starting to, it's important to my kids, and they're 9, 15, 16. They're really important. You try and
they're just not jaded.
You try and put an egg box in the bin in my house. Oh my goodness!
Generation defining, isn't it?
It just it would never happen. They're absolutely kind of bin crazy. And so actually I think we've got a good opportunity for emerging talent now to capture them where they are actually bothered about their purpose, and use that as part of the reason why they should come and work for us, because this is a purposeful organisation that will walk away from something that isn't ethical. And you're going to make more money than a firefighter. But
you might make less money than the dishonest recruitment company next door.
Short term.
But only this year.
Short term.
But that's is that going to lead to a fulfilling thing? Like, one thing I often think about is, I thought about this many years ago. Ryan McCarr, bless him, from Odro, spoke to me once, and he said, no one gets up in the morning wanting to sell video tech. And he's like, I'm not going to sit and pretend to my guys like we're changing the world with video tech. You focus on what it is they wanted to accomplish in life. And my counter to him at the time was, completely agree, but the way I've always viewed society and the work that we do, the ultimate calling I think in life is ultimately to advance the human race, which sounds very kind of like whatever you want to call it. Going to other planets, advancing us as a species, whatever you want to call it. There's like a second-hand impact on that where you're enabling those people that do that are the scientists of this world, the doctors, the ones that really are transforming how we live life, essentially. You can be supporting those. And the way that I've always justified what I do at OneUp as being a valuable thing is like we support the recruiters that could potentially place that scientist into a company that goes on to, get us off to Mars, for example, or to invent penicillin like back in history. Yeah. There's so many of those big moments that if you can see how you contribute towards something larger than yourself, larger than just your family, the company you work for, the whole world in a way. That's a really good way to find that motivation for yourself that I think many don't always pause to think about. They view it as what's the immediate job and what am I doing, not how is that helping have a bigger impact on something beyond just me. Yeah. And that's why, social media certainly doesn't help. There's a lot of people that feel very, very lost in the world, I think, and that's because they don't have that foresight of what's going on. All they see is the flash cars and it's about money. It's very substance-based. It's very materialistic. And that can damage motivation so deeply, I think.
Yeah, I've become increasingly over the last 5 years a grumpy old man. And
I could never tell.
I know. I now am at the point that I'm looking at the younger people and going, in my day. Right? and I'm totally
in my day we didn't recycle egg cartons.
and I remember going for lunch with my wife in a really nice restaurant in New York, and we were like super excited. We actually tripped over it by accident, Googled it, turned out it was mega cool, because I only find mega cool stuff by accident. I think you know this, right? So we go in and we have this amazing brunch, right? And there's like 15 courses. It's just insane. You can't keep up with it. It's absolutely brilliant, and we loved it. And there were 2 people on the table just behind us, and every single time a dish arrived, they spent 7 or 8 minutes getting the right selfie with their selfie sticks. And to begin with, I just noticed it because it was very obvious and a little bit fake. And then I realised anyone who watches that or on Instagram or whatever it might be is going to think, they're so lucky, right? Because they went to this incredible place in New York with this great view and da-da-da. They don't know what I know. Every single course was cold by the time they ate it. Their actual experience was substandard nonsense, right? Because they were so obsessed with showing the world they were having a good time, they didn't take time to actually enjoy it in the first place, right?
Yeah, completely.
It's got nothing to do with what we're talking about, but I'm a grumpy old man.
This is now Nathan rants. Forget about
this is why working in tech sales keeps me young, you see, because I'm just like all these young sellers now, they kind of they make me kind of stay. I'm in their mindset, spend so much time with them that I'm so desperate not to be like the mom. If anyone ever said, "Oh, you're like the mom of the team," I think you know Owen from Mercury.
Yeah.
He once got me a birthday card with mom.
And you'd a meltdown.
And did he work for me a couple of weeks later? That was just like, but it was all very funny because people know I have this kind of adversity to like being like the mum of the team. But I think when you work with younger people as well, and also it helps me having children as well. But I can kind of converse with this stuff and around this stuff quite a lot. But yeah, I think I pay very little homage to anything that I see kind of on social and this kind of fake life.
Society's changing quicker than it ever has, right? And one of the reality checks about that from a motivation perspective is that actually if a 19-year-old starts at my company next week, then do I truly understand the world in which they live? The views in which they have, not just from an individualistic perspective, and we're all different, but actually just an entirely different generation, driven and motivated by completely different things. And how do I plug into that? Should I try to plug into that? How does that work? How do we bridge that gap? How do you make sure that you can take a leader with lots of experience in XYZ and put them in a room full of new people coming in and make sure that clicks? Right.
Yeah.
Well, I imagine you've had a couple of shifts over your career as well to kind of bring it back to this piece. Like, how do you understand people that are then so different, that have grown up in a different world where everything is tech first, for example? Like, it is a very different time, and as you mentioned, that everything is about conscientiousness, for example. How have you adapted to that? How have you learnt about it?
I think for me that there's 2 things. There's trying your hardest to hire people who believe in the same things that you do. They don't need to do things in the same way, right? But who have. We were talking earlier about your Donna, internal drive, right? And I really try and find that in people. And I love to interview someone and why did you do that? And when they don't know, I'm happy. So why did you work so hard at that? And they look at you as if to say, well, why wouldn't I? Right? That's a special kind of person, right? And that's an amazing thing. So trying to find someone who has that drive to begin with, and then asking them what matters. I'm not a big fan of rigid career paths. Welcome to our company. Here are the 3 paths you can go on. They're presented on this PowerPoint. I would really like, wherever possible, to be able to say, what's your journey? How can I help you get there? Let's be frank. And by the way, if your journey is to go to Mars, I love Kite, probably not for us, right? But what's the journey you want to go on and how can we help you get there? And at least then you're in dialogue. And it doesn't mean that you'll always meet eye to eye on everything. It doesn't mean that every conversation will be a success. But I don't think I think there's a real danger of dictating what good looks like to people as they come into your business. If you're lucky enough to run a good business, it's because of the people in there in the first place, right? So recognize the value of what you're bringing in and an open dialogue, I think.
I also think things like honesty, kindness, work ethic, they don't change with technology.
That's true. Very good point. Yeah.
They sit there all of the time and they are in some 19-year-olds and not in some 19-year-olds. They are in some 50-year-olds and not in some 50-year-olds. And so I think hiring for those types of skills where you know that what you're going to get with somebody, who cares how they spend their evenings? It doesn't really matter to me. No. And and I would interview anybody of kind of all ages, because those are the kinds of things that I'm looking for. Is, do you have the peace of mind to walk away from something that's not going to feed you today, but is going to help you feel better tomorrow? And those are the kinds of skills that I want in somebody. And if they do happen to be closer to my kids' age than me, then I'll lean into it and be like, let's, if you want to chat about TikTok, let's have a chat about TikTok. I might learn something.
Yeah, I definitely
because you can learn so much. I learn so much from these guys. Like my 9-year-old's got his own YouTube channel, 76 subscribers I think he's got now, which he's delighted with. He builds Lego on YouTube.
Oh, bless him.
And I'm just like in awe of him, because I've only just started my YouTube channel just because of the podcast and stuff. So I'm really trying to keep up and stay along. So I think we can all learn from each other as long as we're all honest, kind, and hardworking. I think that's the environment.
It's so right. If you're hardworking and decent, to be honest with you,
those are things that don't change, even though values and attitudes might.
And everything else is just detail, right?
Yeah.
What I love is over the last hour I was looking to set the world to right. I definitely took a beer away, but it was a good conversation. The key thing we come back to really is it sounds like making sure you're surrounded by the right people, finding your tribe, the ones who think the same way that you do, because that's the sort of thing that will persevere through tough times, regardless. Otherwise, if they don't, they'll be going to find somewhere else that is more their tribe when things do get a bit tougher.
Think the same way that you do, or contribute to the vision that you have. Right, it's definitely not the case that everyone thinks the same way as me, thank goodness. I think if you had a kite full of Nathans, it would be a bit hard to control, right? But we've all got the same vision, purpose, we're all on the same journey, facing all the same way in the boat, right? All that stuff.
But the boat's got to be moving in the right direction.
That's the key one.
That's the problem.
I feel like there's another level to this metaphor.
That's the thing. That's another good book.
Are we in choppy waters at the moment?
Will it make the boat go faster? Is that the book?
Yeah, that's a good book actually as well.
Really
I haven't read that.
It's about the Olympians, wasn't it?
Yeah, I saw his talk.
They finished like 8th or something, and then the next time around they're like, right, if we're going to win, everything we do has got to be about making the boat go faster. Like when we have for breakfast, our training schedule, changes to the boat, everything they did, they asked, will that make the boat go faster?
But the thing is, they were incredibly close as a team, and this is really good actually for this topic. They were incredibly close as a team, and they had to kick people off and say, for this race, you're not in, and it was incredibly hard. But every decision that they made all came down to, will it make the boat go faster? And that's what made the decisions. And so at some point when we've finished saying, have we got a team of people that we all love and let's all hold hands and do Ring a Ring of Roses, actually, is this team the team that's going to make the boat go faster? And hopefully the answer is always yes, but as we know, it's mostly no, and therefore there has to be tough decisions along the way as well. But as long as it's moving in the right direction, I think at the moment, certainly in tech, and I know in recruitment as well, none of us are looking for speedboat speed. Like, we'll take a chug.
As a bunch of clients
We'll
have
take a
recently,
pedalo in Greece.
many have said right now standing still feels good, and I was like, yeah, I guess so, but a lot of people are rescinding.
I need to see a little bit of movement, but as long as it's pointing the right way, that's what. And the thing is, what you don't want is a super motivated team who love your brand and love working for you, that actually when you really look at it and you're honest with yourself, they're always going the wrong way and they're actually stopping the rest of the team.
And by the way, companies, industries.
Sounds like a right cow.
No, great. No, I think you're absolutely bang on, because and Derry wants to wrap up because we've gone over. But I think also when you've run a company for a long time, there are different chapters, and this hasn't happened to us, and which I'm really pleased about. But it could have done. You may find that someone who was amazing for chapter 1, let's call it pre-recession or something like that, right? And I mean the recession in 07, 08. I'm not saying there just was one, just so we're clear. You could get someone who was great pre-recession, maybe an account manager, maybe something like that, who actually during the tough times isn't right. And that's the peculiar thing about being a top performer. Being a top performer is circumstantial, right? You're not necessarily the best at everything because you're the best at one thing. And actually, if the environment changes around you, you may find that's not your home anymore. And it's a really difficult moment if that happens to someone, right?
Indeed.
Spot on. Well, we are over time, you are right. So what I'll ask you now, the last couple of minutes to go through, back on this kind of topic, motivation that lasts. I think we've kind of summarised a lot of it comes down to making sure there's the right people there, and if that means making hard decisions. But any final tips or words of wisdom? And I'll start with you, Nathan.
I think focus on the value that you add to everyone. Why does the customer engage with us and no one else? Why does the employee stay with us and not leave to go anyone else? What is the driver behind all of that? And then work backwards from there.
Start with why.
Yeah, start with why. Yeah.
Nice. Donna?
Yeah, always start with why. And we spend so much money and time training our sales teams to think about the outcomes that we achieve for our customers. Let's bring that in-house as well and start to make sure that they know why we're doing what we're doing. So again, going back to the why, but what are the outcomes that we deliver for who, and get them to really kind of buy into that. And the advantage, as I said at the beginning, of maybe a slower market is that there isn't that rat race. There is the time now to use this time, because things are going to get good again. Newsflash. And I can't wait, by the way. But, whilst we have this little bit of bandwidth now, what can we really use this time for that's super valuable? And I think actually creating more purpose and more value about what we do, and more knowledge and understanding throughout the team, so that there isn't sales, CS, product, and all of the different silos anymore, so that we're one team. We've got a real opportunity and a window now to help that to happen, so that when things do pick up again, we are so ready and we drive forward as one moving part, and hopefully a much more successful.
Fingers crossed. Well, I've really felt like we put the world to rights in the last hour and 15 minutes. So, but honestly, guys, a massive thank you for coming on. Really good conversation. Nathan, Donna, I hope we get to do it again sometime soon.
Definitely. It'll be a hat trick for me, so I'll be delighted.
Why not make it 3 at that point as well? Yeah. But I hope you found it useful. And of course, there are plenty more episodes like this out there as well. We have our podcast. We have another OneUp Sessions coming out alongside this one as well. So please do tune in and check it out and let us know your thoughts. Who do you want to hear from? What do you want to hear about? We're always here listening for that one as well. So we'll catch you in the next one. We know that buying software can be a painful experience. You're signing 2 to 3 year agreements, you're paying thousands up front, spending months going through implementation, and then it's not quite what you were sold during the sales process. But we believe in what we're doing at OneUp here so much that we're currently running a free trial. No setup work required on your side, no credit card info required. Just get in touch on our website, oneupsales.com, and you get to see what TVs and competitions can do to lift up a little bit of life on your sales floor during a year where things are pretty tough. Look forward to seeing you there soon. Let's get back to the episode. And I'll do one for the end as well. I really hope you've enjoyed. So if you are interested, oneupsales.com, have a look at our free trial. And if it's of interest, get yourself signed up. See you then.